Amanda Roses, and welcome to my first time building a gaming PC. I've wanted to build my own gaming PC for a while. I've actually never even owned a gaming PC before. I've always just used my PlayStation 5, my PlayStation 4, so I'm really excited to open up a whole new world of gaming with this PC, and I'm also excited to be building it myself. I am totally new to this whole process. Before I got started, I had to learn how to build it, how to pick the parts, how this whole thing works. So I'm definitely not a pro, and this is definitely not a tutorial. I just wanted to share my experience of picking the parts, putting it all together, and seeing what happens. I do a lot of research to figure out what parts to get, and I really enjoyed that process of kind of going through and picking things based on what I already had and what I thought would go best with that. I was incredibly lucky to have somebody very, very generous give me some of their unused PC parts, which really got me started, and honestly, I probably wouldn't be building this today if it weren't for that person. Huge thank you to that person, Christopher Cernas. I've been looking up a lot of tutorials about how to put this together, but I'm a little bit nervous. You know, these are expensive parts and I definitely don't want to damage them. I'm sure you all felt pretty similar when you were getting started on your first PC too, so, you know, just bear with me if I make some mistakes. I'm not trying to, I'm doing my best here, but one thing I'm sure is that I will learn a lot from this process. I started by unboxing my CPU and installing it onto the motherboard. This was a section that I was most nervous for. The CPU is expensive and delicate, and as I heard so many times, if you bend the pins on the bottom, you can seriously damage the CPU. So as I was taking it out, I was very careful only to touch it on the sides. I was probably actually a little bit too delicate with it because I struggled to get the lever down since I was so worried about breaking something. Next, I installed the 4 sticks of 16GB RAM. Again, I was very hesitant putting the first one in, and it took me a couple tries to get it right, but eventually I heard that very satisfying click as it went in place. I am definitely going to run out of space with all the games I want to play on this PC, but for now we have a 1TB SSD installed on the motherboard. This little sticker is because my SSD is one-sided and the slot is for a two-sided one. Now that the motherboard's all ready to go, I'm preparing the case to install it inside. Sit back and enjoy the music because we have 9 screws to install right now. Now to unbox the all-in-one CPU cooler I'm using for this PC build. If there's a perfect way to install a CPU cooler, but if there is, this probably isn't it. It was very awkward trying to hold the cooler up like this while I installed all the screws. Not to mention, I almost dropped it several times. Thankfully, I managed to get in place with no damage to the cooler at least. My wrist was definitely a little sore after this. I'm installing an AIO cooler, I removed the retention module and the backplate, which I actually forgot about until it made a loud noise when it fell off. I was definitely scared that I broke something for a second. The cooler already came with thermal paste pre-applied, so all I had to do was switch out the Intel bracket for an AMD one before finally putting it onto the CPU. This was another extremely awkward angle to hold in place. If anybody has a better way to do this, please let me know in the comments. My wrist could really use the help. After installing the CPU cooler, the next step was to plug in all of the cables into the motherboard, which seems like it should be a simple step, but was actually the hardest part for me. Part of that was my fault for not doing enough advanced research on that section. I thought the tutorials would be enough, but I realized pretty quickly that it was very specific to my motherboard and my parts, and I had to rely very heavily on the guidebook that came with my motherboard, which meant a lot of puzzle solving and thinking about where I was going to plug things in, so it took quite a while, way longer than I expected it to, but in the end, I finally got everything plugged into where they were supposed to be. The other problem was actually plugging the cables into the motherboard. Some of the plugs were in the most awkward places possible that were so hard to reach, like this one here. It was almost impossible to plug in around the cooler, and I'm surprised I managed to get this in a reasonable amount of time. I don't know if there's a way to make this easier. I don't know if you can plug things in before putting the motherboard in. That would take way more advanced planning than I did, but eventually I got them in. For the exciting part, the GPU. This was one of the parts that was very generously donated to me, and it's basically what I built all the other PC parts around. I was nervous installing the CPU, just imagine how terrified I was of installing the GPU. It actually was super easy to put in, I had no problems at all, and it just kind of clicked in place. Not that I trusted that at first, of course. I still had to check a bunch of times to make sure it was actually secure, just for my peace of mind. I can't believe we're finally at the last part, although this did take me about 6 to 8 hours? I kind of lost track of time at this point, but it is time to unbox and install the power supply unit. And of course, another nearly impossible cable to plug in. You guys don't even know how long I spent trying to plug this in, but eventually I got it, just as I was about to lose hope. The case comes with 3 fans on the front, but I decided to install one more exhaust fan on the back. All parts are installed, cables are managed, the time is finally here to put the case back together. And now, to turn it on. So here you go, my PC is fully up and running. I have been using it for a couple weeks now and I am just incredibly happy with it. It's everything I could have dreamed of and more. It was such a fun process going through and building it. I was so nervous, like I said, when I started, but it actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It's a lot more accessible to the average person, especially with all the tutorials online and all the guides. I was very hesitant going through this whole process. Things like putting the CPU in place, I was so scared I was going to mess it up, but I honestly think as long as you're being a little bit careful, it would be hard to mess that part up. So I was really taking my time. It actually took me like 2 full days to build this thing. I think if I were to do this again next time, which I definitely want to build another one because it's kind of addicting and super fun actually, and I can't wait to do my next one. But when I do that, I think it will be a lot faster this time because I know what to expect. I am not so scared about putting every part in place, so it'll definitely be more efficient. Honestly, every time I walk into my room, I just get so happy seeing my PC there. Like, I can't believe I built this and it's mine now. Like, that is the coolest thing ever. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, I would love if you would subscribe and join me for more of our adventures with the PC. I make a lot of gaming content like Let's Plays, playthroughs, highlights, vlogs, fan art, live streams, a little bit of everything, and now I'm excited to introduce more PC stuff as well, so definitely think about subscribing if you want to see more of that. I'm so happy I got to share this experience with all of you guys. It has been so fun building this, and I love getting to share it with a group of people who are just as excited about gaming and passionate about doing projects like this, so thank you so much for joining me through this process. Other than that, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day or night whenever you're watching this. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video.